Welcome back to another episode of the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori. I'm your fabulous host, and yes, super. Thanks for asking. A lot to get to today. We're going to talk more officiating if we haven't beaten that to a dead horse. That's a great line to intro a show with. A lot to get to today. UNM baseball can clinch a berth in the NCAA tournament. They are in the Mountain West Conference tournament for the first time in 7 years. So shout out to them. Some football recruit stuff. We'll get to that. Diego Pavia had a football camp. We'll hit on that. And then we're going to be joined. First off, we're going to be joined by Bill Gracey, who his accolades. I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to throw it to Ed when I get to him. To have him intro Mr. Gracey, and then we'll talk to him about officiating in his career. Kind of piggyback off in the conversation we had last week about the Mountain West men's basketball joining a college officiating consultorium. I hope I said that right. That's 13 years of private Catholic school education down the drain. I can't even pronounce a word. We're live on Instagram. We're live on Twitter, or X, excuse me, the artist formerly known as X. We're live on YouTube. When I said X, I don't know, it sounds like a porn thing. Anyway, comment, join the conversation. Again, we have built this for the UNM community, those in Albuquerque and Mountain West community. So we appreciate those that watch in the area and that watch around the conference, because we have gotten people that have watched from, fabulous Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city in the world, Reno, some guys in San Diego. We've got people in Florida. I know that. We're joined mostly by the gang tonight. The usual suspects are here. I'll start with the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs and a Lobo fan since 1970. His name is Mr. Ed Nunez. Senor, how are you doing?
Doing great, Ryan. Looking forward to talking to Coach Gracey. He's going to be a great guest.
You can follow him at NM Sports Capper on the X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. His name is Mr. Jacob Neff. Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing good, Ryan. Was in Reno this week. I got enough of the Wolf Pack chants, so back to be home in Lobo Land, and I was starting to get sick to my stomach at the graduation. So glad to be back home in New Mexico.
And all the way from the Bay Area. The Bay don't play. I stole that from a shirt I saw. And he is a two-time offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza and the St. Pius Sartans. He played basketball under Damian Segura at St. Pius, and then I always butcher this part. He was an MVP of a 35 and older men's league in the Bay Area. His name is Mr. Richard Thompson. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. Thanks for having me back. Ready to talk to Mr. Gracey and some other Lobo news. Let's get it going.
Yeah, plenty to talk to. I'm going to bring our special guest in today. He goes by Bill, but I guess it's William Gracey. I'm bringing him to the stage. We don't have him on camera, and there we go. Perfect. I am going to throw it to Ed real quick because he's in the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame. He was a referee. He was an athletic director. I think it's Cibola. There's a long list. But Ed, you reached out to him. You brought him. You were able to get him on the show. So I'm going to throw it over to you, and then we're just going to throw some questions his way.
Well, Coach Gracey, as you mentioned, was elected to the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame in 2022. He's been a basketball official since 1982. Started out, I remember his Hall of Fame speech. Started out, I think, in the parochial league. It's maybe $25 a game. He had a great speech there when he was inducted. Then he got into college. So I believe he started in 85, 84, and officiated all the way up to 2013, and then he was an evaluator with the Mountain West Conference from 2013 till just recently. He just resigned about a month ago. So he's had extensive experience as a basketball official, 14 NCAA assignments. In 2003, he officiated the Elite Eight game between Syracuse and Oklahoma to go to the Final Four. Syracuse going to the Final Four. Extensive experience as an official. As I mentioned, as an evaluator, he knows, we have a lot of questions about officials. I've heard it. I've had a few myself. I mentioned I officiated high school for 22 years. Coach Gracey's also won a baseball championship at Cibola in 1983, the only baseball championship Cibola ever won. He served as an assistant to Susan Craig at UNM softball program. And just this weekend, he's an assistant with La Cueva beating Cleveland 2-1 and in a game where the Cleveland reliever walked in 2 runs for La Cueva to win. And I was the PA announcer that game, so that was a heck of a contest. But we've got Coach Gracey on here to talk about basketball officiating, and I don't think we can get anybody any better and more qualified than him. He's become a good friend and someone who I have a lot of respect for.
Mr. Gracey, that's quite an introduction. We've had some really cool people on the show, but that's up there. Hey, how are you doing tonight? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. I'm living the dream. I'm retired. I'm another state champion with La Cueva baseball. Everybody's healthy in my family. Life is good. No problems.
That sounds. I would say that's the definition of not complaining. Congrats on the La Cueva championship. I mean, you're fresh off of it. Just can you comment on that?
Yeah, it was to be a volunteer. I volunteer. I was the head coach at Cibola for 18 years, head coach at La Cueva for 1. Planned on retiring from La Cueva, but UNM offered me an assistant's job at softball. And after 19, 20 years of doing high school, it kind of got redundant to the fact that you're doing everything day by day, week by week. It's the same year in and year out, and the chance to go to D1 in softball. And I'd worked with the Lowell outfielders for quite a few years for Susan Craig and Kenny Johnson. But yeah, it's a little different in D1. One day you're working with some infielders, and the next day you're playing golf with some boosters trying to get money out of their pocket. Next day you're on an airplane going recruiting. So it was a real change. But yeah, I have a unique career between baseball, a little bit of softball, and basketball refereeing, which really changed me and my family's life.
I don't think you hear that too often when you say officiating changes your life, but by judging by your resume, I can see that and hear that. I wanted to start off, and this is why I think Ed, one of the big reasons he reached out to you last week. We talked about it on Thursday. This was a press release from the Mountain West Conference. The Mountain West men's basketball joins college officiating consortium. I hope once again, I hope that I pronounced that right. They're joining the likes of, I think, the Big 12, excuse me, not Big 12, Big 10, Horizon, Mid-American Conference, the MAC, the Summit League, and now you had the Mountain West Conference. Can you explain to our listeners and myself, and I throw this out there a lot, when I was at the student newspaper, I never wrote for 3.5 years. I never touched on officiating. It was something we never wrote about. And the year I was at the Journal, the guys I worked with, we never wrote about officiating. I've been a little bit more vocal about officiating this season with what I saw within the Mountain West Conference. I am one of those guys that believes that it's dictated by the players. But when you hear that, and if you've heard any of the Mountain West Conference scrutiny, when you hear them joining up with these other conferences and somebody as reputable as the Big 10, can you explain what that is and what that means for the Mountain West Conference? And does it benefit, which I know the answer to, but does it benefit the Mountain West Conference?
Well, I pronounce the word consortium, so that's what I'm going to say in this. But when I started refereeing in the WAC in 1982, there was like 8 teams, and you worked just WAC. You didn't work for the WAC and the Southwest Conference. And so this thing over the years has gotten bigger and bigger. And Bobby Deibler, who was my mentor and then has become my boss, the consortium thing started taking over the country. So in the West Coast, or we call it the Western Basketball Officials Consortium, you had the Pac-12, the West Coast, the Big West, the Mountain West, the WAC, and the Big Sky. So you had one guy assigning all those basketball games. So I was brought on board to help with 2 of those leagues, which was the Big West and the West Coast. West Coast being Gonzaga, St. Mary's, BYU at the time, but they just jumped to the Big 12. And then the Big West was all the LA schools and Hawaii and UC Davis. And what happened, Bobby Deibler retired a year ago, so I just finished 1 year under the new supervisor of officials for that consortium I just told you about. And and no fault to John Higgins, who was the supervisor for the West Coast Consortium, the Pac-12 dissolved. We already knew that UCLA and USC were going to the Big Ten for football and taking all their schools with them, but it was football driven. And then as the year progressed, you had Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah all going to the Big 12, and you had Washington, Oregon jumping ship and going to the Big 10 to join USC and UCLA. And so what happened during all of this change, I would call it change, from when I worked with Mr. Deibler and then John came in. John brought in a lot of new officials from the Midwest because there was a unwritten rule that the guys out in the West weren't very good officials. And I could debate you that all day long. We're just as good and we're just as bad as anybody else in the country. It just really kind of depends on where your loyalty is at times as a spectator or an administrator. And I think what happened this year, and I don't have anything to back this up, just my gut feeling, was that Gloria Navarez, who is the commissioner of the Mountain West Conference, did not like the direction that she saw the officiating going this year. And, she's still in the Mountain West, but the Mountain West is going to hire their officials out of the Big Ten consortium. And it's not Big 10, it's Big 20 something by now. But when we start talking about this, it's a monster. You're charged with getting 3 officials at every game, and you got to remember almost every team in America plays on a Saturday. And to get that many teams in the consortium, and I don't know who else is in the Big Ten consortium. It's just not the 10. I think Mid-American's in there and such and such and such and such. But it's a monster to try to get 3 qualified referees on a Saturday. Not as hard sometimes on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday because not all the leagues play on those days. They kind of mix it up. So you could have an all-star crew at the University of New Mexico on a Wednesday, maybe 2 guys that have already worked the Final Four and another up-and-coming guy. But on Saturday, you have to divide that crew up, and they're going to be split up. Your crews just aren't as strong. Unless it's an unbelievable game. Let's just say it's New Mexico and San Diego State. They're both undefeated. You better have 3 horses on that game. The other problem with that is you usually are assigned these games in October or November, and some leagues, Bobby would assign them about 2 months. Bobby Deibler would assign games 2 months out, so you knew what your November and December schedule were. And then when the conference started, those would go out. And so you may not know that the University of Mexico is picked dead last, but they're fighting for the championship. And maybe earlier in the year, you didn't crew it like that. You thought, well, New Mexico is going to be such and such, so I don't have to have 3 all-stars on that. I can only put 2 on there and maybe bring up a up-and-comer. So I know I'm kind of rattling there. I don't know if I answered a question or not.
No, I think you did there. That I mispronounced it. That's like I said, the the private school tuition that my parents paid for went down the drain. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. And with everything that's happened, that's transpired with the realignment and everything within the conferences. When you said like Big 20 there, it's kind of crazy. And then mentioning all the LA schools, because Jacob and I love to watch Big West Coast Conference basketball late at night on Thursday nights during college basketball season. So I was appreciative to hear you say that. I'm going to throw it to the guys, and maybe I'll start with Ed. Ed, not trying to put you on the spot. Do you have any questions?
Coach, I think, you and I talked about officiating, and you've been an evaluator since 2013. You just resigned just a month ago. And I think it's important for people to know, you're assigning officials, as you mentioned, every Saturday. You got to pick certain officials to, as you mentioned, for that key game. But I would probably my question to you is, would you let everyone know what officials are evaluated on? It could be off the ball calls. It could protect the shooter, perimeter play, rerouting on the perimeter, post play, coach's box. If they're, handling the coaches, handling the players. Can you just mention what officials are evaluated on? There's a whole bunch of things, I'm sure, but I just mentioned a few that I know we were evaluated on in high school. But can you just tell people what officials are evaluated on every game?
Well, let's talk at the Division I level. because that's what I'm mostly used to here lately. But first, you have to be a good play caller, and that's probably above anything else. A good play caller, and you have to be one hell of a communicator. You have to be able to have that gift to um, put out a quick fire with the coach when he's on you, to settle it down so we can keep playing. I'll give you a quick example. Majerus and I go way back, and he would say something that, early, and then again and again. I say, Rick, are you going to referee all night? Because you can have my whistle. If you got a rapport with Rick Majerus, then you can get away with that. If you're a younger guy and you want to say that to him, he's going to eat you alive. So there's a maturity that goes with what we're looking for as quality officials. Anymore, you better have the look. There's no more Moose Stubings, and you're not going to be 6'7" and weigh 300 pounds, and like Moose was, but Moose was a great play caller. There's that certain look that the coaches are going to buy into, that this guy's an athlete and he's going to give us the best shot tonight because he's in shape and he can run with these kids. The thing that you grade them on during the game, and I have game graded for a couple of years, and game grading in consortium, basically the day after the game, I could download the game on a computer and I'd watch a play, and there was a whistle that I'd replay it, and it's a no-brainer. Definitely hit him across the arm. He's going to get a correct call for that. And you're just going to go how many correct calls he had and on how many calls overall, and he's going to come up with a percentage. And so those percentages kind of let you know, maybe after a scale of 10 games, that every time Bill Gracey misses a call, it's a traveling. He's not good at calling traveling. So you can kind of then pick up the phone and say, hey, Grace, you're missing the traveling, and you always miss it when you're underneath, which is the lead position, and you're letting post players travel constantly. So you got to take a harder look at this, and here's the plays I want you to look at. You can just send it through DV Sport, and you say, look at play 185, 122, 113. Tell me these aren't travels. So we get in that conversation between the two of us as a game grader and a referee to try to make him better. And you guys well know, as long as you've all been in sports and you love sports, there's good officials, there's bad officials. And what we try to do with the bad officials is make them better. But yeah, sometimes it's just it's a tough animal to just grade them on one game. So you have to have kind of a variety of games and different kind of games to evaluate different guys. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're asking Eddie a lot of things, but as far as their overall is quality of the play that they called, some officials right now referee to the eye in the sky. When I was growing up in this business and got to where I got, I might get one or two films sent to me a week, and it was a VHS tape, the old blocks. So it took them a couple days to mail it to you, and then you could respond and go back. And now it's immediate. I can show referees plays at halftime of their games and say, look what you did here. It's the new rule. You didn't allow the defender to get there before the offensive player's last foot went up in the air. That should have been called a block. We don't do that, by the way, at halftime. But technology allows you to get a lot better, a lot quicker than I used to be able to, if that makes sense. So help me out, Eddie. Give me something else because I'm breathing here.
You mentioned a lot of things, especially about the coaches. Being able to put out those quick fires. What I think the other thing I want to ask you is high school officiating. There's been a lot of officials throughout the country. At the high school level, it's kind of thinned out a little bit. Are you finding that the talent pool at the college level is less to pick from then? Because sometimes high school officials make that jump to college. They go to camps and they get picked. Are you finding that all the games you're assigning? You mentioned that Saturday games, you got to get quality officials. You have all these games to assign. Did you find that the talent pool is thinning a little bit?
No, not really. It seems like, I'll give you an example. John Higgins just ran a camp in Memphis, and I think he had over 200 guys go to that at almost $600 a pop to go to that camp. There's a lot of talent out there, and there are guys right now that will spend more in the summer going to camps trying to get somebody's eyes to look at them to give them that shot than they'll make in the whole next basketball season. The thing that I hopefully I can say this right. There are some guys that don't want to pay their dues at the parochial league, the junior high, the high school level, JUCO ball to get to D1. They want it really, really fast. And I've seen a lot of guys that were good, but they quit because they didn't think they were moving fast enough. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think in every sport, as you guys well know, we're hurting for officials in every sport in every state, and it's a sad situation. But I think you said I might have got $25 for those first games. It was a parochial league, 5th and 6th grade girls. I got $3 a game, 2 games a night. That was $6, baby, and that was half a tank of gas. So I just kept that thing rolling, and not to shock you, but my last game that I refereed, I got $3,000 for the game. So
Wow.
my career from $3 to 3,000, and it's higher than that right now. These guys make a ton in 4 months. Trust me.
Crazy.
The good guys, the really good officials.
Well, other than the paychecks, having ref for over 30 years at the Division One level, what other things kind of changed being a referee in the game? I don't think there was replay in 2014 or 15 when you stopped, or there might have been, but what other things in the game changed from a referee's perspective just over those decades besides the nice paycheck?
Well, when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing, really. I'm a freak when it comes to a Division One basketball referee. I never played basketball. Yeah, it's not my favorite sport. I'm a baseball guy, football second, and I learned how to referee basketball. But what I've seen
He's our
change,
kind of guy, Jacob.
and I told you it absolutely changed my life. I mean, my wife and I are both school teachers, retired, and we live in the neighborhood that if we were teachers, we wouldn't be living in this neighborhood. Basketball and the money from the beginning until the end definitely changed our lives. And I think getting back to your question about what has changed the most is it's become such a business. A lot of us, when we were refereeing early in our career, there was 3 of us in a room. We flipped for the hideaway, and because we weren't making that much. My first whack check was $100, and it was $150, and I went to UTEP to have Don Haskins beat me up. And that's, you survive him your first game, you might have a chance. But I got to referee in the golden years where everything wasn't so cutthroat. You didn't have, you're costing me my job, which I heard about 4 times this past year. That referee you had on the game tonight, Gracey's going to cost me my job. And, you hear that an awful lot. Well, that didn't happen earlier in my career. Earlier in my career, the coaches coached, you refereed, and you got to referee a lot more gray area stuff. For instance, if a team was getting slaughtered, if it's a 50-50 call, I'm probably going to lean towards the team that's getting slaughtered. And a while ago, when we were talking, I said, too many of our guys right now referee to the eye in the sky. You say, you could have let that go. You give him a hand check. You called the foul immediately. And if you hadn't called it, you took away an uncontested layup. And then 2 minutes earlier than that, they're hand checking like crazy, but we didn't have a whistle. And those are what I would imagine drives you basketball fans crazy is where's the consistency? And that's the number one word in every talk that I interview is from the time I got in, when I was 19, until the time I got out, 64 or whatever I was, the word consistency is still what coaches complain about the most. You called a trip down there. We had the same thing down there. The guy tripped and we didn't get a whistle. And a very, very good referee needs to be conscious of what kind of call was being made on the other side of the court. so we can keep the calls consistent. And that's what I'm having trouble with their younger referees that I've been working with. They're black and white. Nope, that's a foul. They don't understand, it went in there. The team's down by 10 with 30 seconds to go. There's going to be a tie up, and the guy gets the hold of the ball. But instead of calling that, you call a foul on the guy for reaching in there with his arm. Instead of that gray area where you got a chance here to let's make this a fair situation. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about cheating. I'm talking about 50-50 plays, gray area. You got to be smart with knowing what the scoreboard is. You got to be smart. A quality official needs to know what the hell is going on inside the lines and outside the lines. You need to know foul counts. You need to know timeouts. You need to know that my partner's in trouble right now with that coach across there, and I can switch with him if I can. It's a real complex deal that we do in college basketball. Sorry for rambling again. I just took off.
No. That's perfect. I mean, that's why we had you on. It's a good. Again, I don't think many people. I'm mentioning this as a journalist again. We're not allowed to talk to officials after the game. So it's again the first time in my journalism career, quote unquote, talking to at least somebody who's officiated official. That we're on record with. I met the gentleman, and I forgot his name, who was oversaw football for the Mountain West Conference last year. He was a great guy. Do you? I mean, my question is, because you kind of answered it, and you're searching for good referees. Is it because I don't know, the way of the world has changed, and maybe the verbal abuse taken? Is there a reason maybe why people don't want to become referees in your mind? Do you have a reason for that? Does that question make sense?
I can tell you, I think my son was a outstanding basketball player at La Cueva, and then he was the shortstop at La Cueva, played baseball at UNM, got drafted, and loves basketball. And he has the great body, has the good look, and everything else like that. And I asked him one time, I said, I can get you going when his baseball career was over with Toronto. He says, no. I saw that shit you took your whole. Oops, sorry. I saw that stuff.
No, you're good. You're good.
I saw that stuff that you took all those years. And even as a kid, if I yelled at him, man, he froze up. So his personality was not geared towards being criticized constantly. I grew to what's the word? I learned to understand why people were saying what they were saying. Usually it's because of the love of their team that they have, or they're just idiots. My favorite, people ask me what hurt the most. And I said, well, I can tell you which one got me the most. There was an older lady and her sister. They were like twins. They both wore orange sweaters. They both had white hair. And all during warm up, they would knit. And they were sat right across from where Don Haskins would sit. And they would be about 10 rows up, so not too bad. And this one lady, I don't know their names, but she just hated me. Gracey, you suck. How come you came back? And I'm looking at her and I go, keep knitting, lady. And so I make this call, and I didn't even like this call, but then we go to a TV timeout, and she goes, Gracey. And I wasn't going to turn around. And then she finally said, Gracey, you go home and tell your mom the abortion didn't work.
Oh, man.
I turned around.
Oh, man. Wow.
And I said, good one for you. And the whole place went nuts and laughed. I could have made it bad, but I could have had her thrown out. But I turned around and just say, hey, good one, And things like that, some of the guys don't want to be told, But another gift that I think that college referees have to have is the love to do what they're doing. They really gotta, and part of it is getting yelled at, and getting yelled out when you know you're right. No big deal. It's not fun to get yelled at when you know you're wrong. But you got to have that mentality that you're not going to be perfect. Probably the best game I ever refed big was the one Ed was talking about, Syracuse, Oklahoma, Carmelo Anthony's freshman year. They went on and won it. But it's a fine line sometimes of what you think that you wrote the perfect game, and then you can go back and look at it, and oh man, I did miss that. That should have been a charge. That was a game that I looked at it as hard as I could, and all I could say is I didn't want one whistle back. I felt good on every whistle I did. So when I didn't go to the Final Four the next week, I didn't feel bad because I felt like I could have done as good as I could have. Now, if you miss that travel call and the guy scores and they win by one or something like that, then you know why you're not going on. But when you referee as well as I did that night, I I didn't feel bad that I didn't go on because I felt like that's as good as I can do. But there's some guys, big name guys that you guys have seen at the pit, and you've seen them at. I think Ryan, do you live in the Bay Area?
Rick does.
Rick, I'm sorry, Rick, you live in the Bay Area, but
Yep.
St. Mary's and San Francisco, those are tight little gyms and stuff.
Yeah, I've been to St. Mary's. It's like a high school.
Oh yeah, that sells alcohol at both ends, and so that's fun with the spectators as well.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. We're with former official and New Mexico Sports Hall of Famer Bill Gracey. You mentioned Rick Majerus and then how the rapport you built with him. I thought about something I heard with Michael Jordan. I think when he was on the Wizards and he knew, all the refs, and I'm paraphrasing here, but there's audio of it where the ref is like, Michael Jordan's telling the ref, like, that's a foul, man. And
Right.
the play was over, and the official was like, "You think so, Michael?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's a ref." And the ref just blew a late whistle. And again, these are not the heyday of the Bulls. It was, his time at the Wizards. But that rapport that you built, and you've mentioned Don Haskins and your heyday in the WAC, and I think a lot of people nationally, some may or may not know, the legendary coaches that were in that conference. I guess this is a two-parter, and the second parter is really kind of out there, or not pertains to this. But the first one is, what was it dealing like with some of the coaches? I know you kind of touched on that with Rick Majerus, but some of the bigger name coaches that you reffed in the WAC, and then did you ever get? I mean, I've always remembered hearing Tom Brady said he got nervous before games, but is there a have you? Or did you have nerves, especially with an Elite Eight game, regional, to win the region? Did you have any nerves? I kind of repeated myself there. I'm sorry, but any famous coaches you had a rapport with or a good exchange with, and then any nerves?
Yeah, I'm going to reverse it. I'll talk the nerves first. How's that?
No, that's perfect.
I would get nervous before a UNM scrimmage. And then the only time I could do a Lobo game is when they were doing the exhibition games, so if they're playing Western New Mexico or whatever. But it was cool just to drive across town. I always had nerves, and to me it was a nervous that the number one thing that Bill Gracey didn't want to do is I did not want to embarrass myself. So I got jacked, man. Those bands are going, and my heart's racing, and it really didn't matter. Now, when it got to the first couple of times I did the NCAA tournament, the first one I remember doing was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I had the 8-9, and it was Alabama with Wimp Sanderson, and it was Stanford with Mike Montgomery, which is those two guys are tough on officials. But coaches have to act better in the NCAA tournament because the committee won't tolerate it. And if you don't stick them when they get out of, you're not moving on. They want you to take care of business. But when you get to the NCAA tournament and you get over and the whistle goes off the first time and you run it up and down the first time, it's actually easier, especially when you get some more experience, because the play is so much better. These are the best teams in the country that are left. They don't, I was in charge of the Big West Conference the last 12 years. And I told guys, I said, you come over here, I'll give you a helmet. This is a tough ass league to work. These are mid-major guys, and they're going to show you that they're tough and strong, and they don't space so good. So you got to really, it's easier to referee the NCAA tournament once you get to that level and you have that quality that you can handle the situations that come along with big games. So actually the biggest game, like I said, I ever did was 203 when Syracuse went on. And I was really, after we got going, I was scared to death at the beginning because it was the only game on in the nation. There's only one other game going to go on. No, that was the last one as far as trying to find out who's the Final Four. So you certainly don't want to mess up there. But it just seemed like the players space better. They're better athletes. They don't have to do stupid stuff because their athleticism doesn't allow them to do stupid stuff. It's amazing. I had, gosh, what's his name? Who's the great guard for Georgetown? Can't think of his name.
Iverson.
Allen
Allen
Iverson.
Iverson.
I had Iverson against Texas Tech. Can't remember what year it was. But it's the first time I'd ever had him, and it was in the Georgia Dome. There was 39,000 in there, and I went out early just to look at the place. I'd never refereed with 39,000 people in the place. And two things that happened in that game. Darwin Ham, who I think just got fired by the Lakers, he was Texas Tech's guy. He jumped over Othello Harrington and dunked the ball. And Harrington was 6'11", I think. And it just basically, you just drop the whistle out of your mouth and go, what the heck? It was just incredible. I also was getting ready to call a charge on Iverson. He came around the corner. So if you're going to do a good job refereeing block charge, once you see the offensive player, you got to get your eyes to the defensive player. The defensive player will tell you whether it's a charge or not. If you're just watching the offensive guy, you really don't see how the defensive guy got there. So Iverson comes around the corner. I got air in my whistle. And the next thing I know, after he left the air, he was out by the free throw line shooting a jumper. He had the ability to change directions while he was in the air. And that's why I send the athletes that get to the Sweet 16, 64, the whole deal is you get through the nerves, and I know I'm rambling a little bit about the nerves and stuff. Once you get through that, and you have to believe that you belong at that level, because if you don't, you will screw it up. You won't blow your whistle is the biggest problem. So, coaches, people always say, who is my hardest guy to work with? That's easy. It was right down the road. Neil McCarthy, New Mexico State. He did not like Bill Gracey, and I did not like Neil McCarthy. And it was just a war, and it just seemed like every year I would get the UTEP New Mexico State game every year. And I'd either get it I tossed him at UTEP, and he flipped the crowd off as he went off on ESPN. And then he goes off on me in a four-column article that I'm a mean-spirited person, this, that, and the other, and da. But he was my toughest guy, and he always kind of scared me too. He's probably the scariest coach I ever worked, because I'd heard he was a Golden Gloves boxing champion in California. So I talked about Majerus as one of the best basketball minds I was ever around. And he was an amazing recruiter. If you guys can remember some of those Utah teams that, he played for the championship the one year, but Andrew Bogut and some of the guards that he had were just incredible. But
Andre Miller.
Yes, Andre Miller and Bogut were together, I believe.
It was Michael Doliak.
Doliak too, yeah. And there was, I'm getting that senior citizen thing with my memory with some of the names of these guys, but they were always so well coached. And if they didn't play right, he just yanked them out of the game, kind of like Haskins used to. And him and Haskins had a great relationship. But Rick Majerus, I had refereed a game in 1999 on December the 30th at Wyoming. It was Liberty against Wyoming. And I didn't feel good driving up. We'd fly into Denver, three of us in a rental car, go up to the border, hang a left, going over to Laramie. And I start just getting stomach problems. So we stopped from across the street from the stadium to go into JB's and get soup and salad like we usually do. We're there about 3 hours before the game. Get into the arena, my stomach still doesn't feel good. So to make a long story short, I just walked from free throw line to free throw line, and the other two guys worked their butts off all night. I went from the arena to the emergency room I decided I didn't want to stay in that hospital. I got back to Albuquerque and they operated on me the next day for diverticulitis. And that was 1999, December 31st. My wife's panicking because she thinks the computers are going to go out. Where that gets back to Majerus is, so I'm done for the year, of course, is that Majerus sent me amazing amount of gifts. He sent me his fruit basket with a get well card. He sent me an invitation if I wasn't getting the right medical attention. He had the keys to Utah Medical Center. His heart was really, really big when it came to that. And so you see him on the court and then you find out what he's like behind the scene. He was an incredible person. I could probably talk about him all night long. We didn't end up so good. I threw him out at halftime of a game at Colorado. It was at Utah. I threw Rick Majerus out at Utah, a home game at halftime. So you can imagine how popular I was the second half in that game. But other really good coaches. Steve Fisher, I had him when he was at Michigan, and then when he came out to San Diego, he's just a great guy. He doesn't live and die whether he won and lost that basketball game, and he treats you with respect, and that's all you really want. People ask me when I go to camps, what do you look for in a coach? And I go, I just want the guy to be fair. Don't ask for every play, don't ask for every call, just be fair, and expect me to miss a call once or twice, because the guys that have a lot of trouble with coaches are the guys that don't admit that they made a mistake. And I learned that early in my career. I'd go by and say, Coach, it wasn't my best whistle. I'll work harder. And then off you go, and you learn that communication skills with coaches. The difference between refereeing and this job I just retired from is that, those are 4 to 10-second conversations during a game. And when you're wearing the coat and tie after the game, there's no time limit on those phone calls. And they get pretty interesting. So did that answer your question? It's all about coaching.
No, it certainly did. This has has been a great conversation. Does anybody have anything else right now? I'm sure Ed, probably you've got something.
I just got one more question, because Coach, I think you started out in 82, 84. You did 2-man officiating
Right.
in the WAC for a while. Then you went to 3-man. The late Kip Luna, who used to be our commissioner with the high school, with the ABOA, Albuquerque Basketball Officials Association, would always say the game is changing. You must change with it. Can you explain a little bit about how 2-man coverage went to 3-man, which is way better? And just the challenge of officiating these very the more perimeter play now than post play. Talk a little bit about that, how the challenges of officiating today's game rather than when you officiated with two officials.
Well, you just hit on it right there. When I got in, a young kid that those veterans were trying to help become an official, it pretty much was written that if you're going to have a career, you got to be able to handle the post. If you can referee post basketball, you're going to have a career. Because back when I got in there in 82, 83, it was a post game. Everybody had a post player. Majerus had 4 of them. And, that's what it was. Today's game has gone to a perimeter 3-point shooting contest, which the athletes that they're recruiting now are much more athletic. They can all run. They can all shoot threes. The post players, like you've seen Holdrum, and he's shooting threes when he was at Gonzaga, and these guys can really play. The game has changed because I think athleticism, for whatever reason, they're better athletes now than they were back in the day. I'm not taking anything away from the Jordans of and stuff like that, but it's just like being a baseball hitter. You gotta adapt pitch by pitch, at bat by at bat, game by game. And as an official, you better know what kind of offense that team's running before you get out there. You better know if they've had trouble in the past. You better know who's the shooters and who aren't the shooters. And you better really make sure that all 3 of you are working together on whose responsibility it is when the ball's in that area of the court. And it definitely changed from 2-man to 3-man. I wouldn't have lasted 4 years if it was 2-man. I mean, I've had 15 knee surgeries, and I'd had 13 while I was still reffing. And so without 3 men, I would not be living in this house that I'm living in, I tell you that. But, yeah, the game has changed a lot. You know, we used to always say that the college game was a players game. The players played. No, I take that back. The college game is the coach's game. The coaches are the millionaires, and the kids do what the coach tells you to do. And you get to the NBA, and it's a players game. The players are running the ship. And to me, you know, you got kids right now that they're going to college. They just want to go to the show. And I don't, I'm not an NBA fan. I don't like the product. Um, and I'm a kind of a defensive guy, and I don't think they know that word in the NBA. I never know if I answer your questions or not.
You definitely made allies with Jacob and I about the NBA. That's fantastic.
Can I ask one question, Ryan?
Go, yeah, dude, go ahead. I was just gonna say you haven't spoken at all. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Bill, I think this would be intriguing to the listeners because I know during the season we had a lot of conversation about maybe the inconsistency from half to half, right? Like you would see one half where 8 fouls were called between both teams, and then in the Mountain West this year, the next half would come out and it would almost like turn on a dime where you would see 20 to 25 foul calls, and it almost seems like every time down the court there's a whistle and it's an interruption of play. Do you know what would go into that? You know, is there things that go into it at halftime when you see a game be officiated, you know, kind of loosely, or just letting them play in the first half and then it be dominated by foul calls in the second half?
Well, a couple of years ago, what they were really trying to get, they call it, get the physicality out of the game. And you keep hearing it and you keep hearing it. And I think a couple of years we had it pretty much. So we started blowing pretty early in the game, and then they quit fouling. So you didn't have to blow as much in the second. And the inconsistency is usually driven by who the crew chief is. And you go in at halftime. Let's say it's me and Ricky and Ryan, and you say, hey, we got to tighten it up. There's been 3 guys knocked to the floor. We didn't have a whistle. We got to do a better job of getting in better position, and this, that, and the other. I've had games too where 2 of us, it was a 2-man crew. The other guy just did not get involved. And sometimes that happens because the ball never goes over his way to make calls, or sometimes he just, for whatever reason, he's not there that night. You know, his refereeing brain took a night off. I don't think there is a reason for it. But I certainly understand. I always left my crews right before I'd leave the locker room as an administrator, right there as if I was the lead official. Let's all make our first whistle a good one. And if you go out and you make your first whistle, it's not good. It's on the post player. It shouldn't even been called. And then my partner comes 2 minutes later, and it's a quality. Everybody sees it in the building. You put your second foul on him, he's going to go sit. And going, you know, trying to answer your question, the maturity of your crew has a lot to do with that. And sometimes teams play differently in the second half. You know, it's just not the officials. The teams come out, you didn't have that many the first half, and they come out and they play differently. We're not going to do the zone anymore. We're going to go man to man. We're going to have court press. You know, I used to just want to kiss the coach when I saw a 2-3 zone, you know, because it's easier to referee it. But the man-to-man, and especially the high ball screens, everybody's doing that anymore. And they hand the ball off, and then they just slightly put their butt over there and knock that defender off. You know, teams change from half to half. So I don't have an answer why that happens. I know it does, but sometimes it's just not the referees calling more. It's that they are fouling more. But that's the best I can do.
Oh, that's great. No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You know, some guys would waste their time when I'm working camps. I said, why are you counting 10? There's nobody guarding him. He wouldn't be on the court if he couldn't dribble. Take your eyes off him and look up and see what the defense is doing. Are they setting up in a zone? Are you going to get man pressed? Or whatever the deal would be, so that you're ready to referee what the next play is. Quality officials have to understand somehow your ability to slow the game down in your eyes. And there are, especially young guys, man, the game is so fast for them all of a sudden. I can even remember when I went from junior high basketball to high school basketball in Colorado Springs. I cannot believe how fast that junior varsity game was. And it wasn't. It's just that when they're better than what you're used to. And I would go do those little scrimmages at the beginning of the year, and like, oh my God, this is fast. And then you just start getting back into it, understanding that, okay, he's going to screen here and you're going to back off and you go look for the hedge. Um, so just quality officials, I like the term one of you used. We have to adapt and get better. You know, every game's not the same. Every league's not the same, but you have to make adjustments. And I got a post game tonight. This is the first time in the last 2 weeks I've had two post players that are going to play at the same time. You know, so you pregame your crew that, hey, we got to try to keep both those guys in the game when we can. Let's not call a cheap one on them. Let's not miss a good one, but let's not call a cheap one on them. And yeah, this is kind of fun to talk to you guys about this. It brings back memories of some of my worst calls ever.
Well, what was one of those worst calls? Can you give us one?
Oh, I took my dad to a game at UTEP, and my dad loved that I was a college basketball referee. So Norm Ellenberger is on Don Haskins' staff now, and Don is sick. So Ellenberger's the head coach. And so I'm underneath, I'm the lead official. The ball's coming from my left to right. And I get out there and I just know this guy's going to clobber him. So I anticipated the foul. So I blow my whistle. I'm pointing. This guy caps him. The UTEP guy just caps him. So it's beautiful. And so it's kind of like I raise my hand. I go, nice block. Oh my God. So I gotta go to the table and report it. Well, Norm knew me from Albuquerque, and I used to do his scrimmages when I was in high school, and he basically ran a complete circle around me. And I had the team, so I suck as the official. Then I suck it. I gotta get him on that. So that was one of the worst calls I can remember. And my dad, I finally got my vision of my dad up at the top, and he was like, he felt so bad for me because I was thinking. Then on the way home, he said, "Well, you know, you deserve it." Thanks, Dad. But that one sticks out just because of Norm Ellenberger and being at UTEP. And UTEP was one of my second favorite place to work. My favorite place of all time was Thomas and Mack Center. I got to referee those games with Tarkanian, Larry Johnson, Ogman. That was the best basketball team I ever refereed. Was the year they did not repeat. But it was incredible.
The Unbeatables. They lost to Duke in the Final Four. That's up my alley. I love those. I'm a Knicks fan, so I love Larry Johnson. But that's up my my radar went off when you said that. Does anybody else have any questions? Any other questions?
I just had one final comment about your son Scott. I was able to play basketball against him in the maybe 02 to 05 era, and he was a stallion on the basketball court, but also part of that La Cueva baseball team that I don't think lost for maybe 3 or 4 years. I just wanted to mention again what a great athlete he was, and obviously went on to do much more than just be a great high school athlete. So I just wondered if you could comment about a little bit about like how hard it is for someone that was in your son's position to stay in the minors that long and trying to make it up, and just what that lifestyle's like for someone playing minor league baseball.
Well, I always knew Scotty had a great arm, and he played shortstop at La Cueva, and it was 70 consecutive games. They set the national record, 70 consecutive games without a loss, and then was real excited that Coach Alday and Mark Martinez recruited him to be a Lobo, and he redshirted his first year, and that was good because Ryan Barber was a solid shortstop in front of him. So he started. He never. I think he pitched. He won the state championship game his senior year at La Cueva. He came in and relieved and got the win at the end of it, and they beat El Dorado. And then he redshirted his freshman year, and so then they put him in the Illinois Central Collegiate League. So a lot of people don't know that college baseball players go in these leagues all over the country to play and keep playing. And one day in, I don't know what little town it was in Iowa, but it wasn't Scott's turn to play. He was sitting out, and they were getting railroaded pretty good. And the manager didn't want another pitcher to throw because they had a doubleheader the next day. So he asked, "Hey, any of you guys got an inning in your arm?" Scott raises his hand, and he goes out there, and I think he pitched an inning in the third, and he blew them all away. And Christian Parker, who played for El Dorado and also made it to the major leagues for maybe a game or two, had taught Scotty the cutter. So his fastball cutter, but he never pitched at UNM. And so those guys didn't know anything. Well, now it's a sophomore year, and every college baseball team has a scout day. So all the scouts in the region show up, and it's UNM scout day. So they hit ground balls to all the infielders and watch their arms. And everybody hits fly balls to the outfield and watch their arms. And then the last thing they do is the pitchers and the catchers go down to the bullpen, and they're going to watch there. Well, Scott was through with his infield. He went in to get showered up, and the last pitcher threw, and the scout for Pittsburgh says, "Well, is Gracey going to throw or not?" And Coach Alday said, "Gracey?" He says, "Yeah, I got him turned in at 93 this past summer." So they ran a manager in there and said, "Scott, they want you to come out and throw." So next thing you know, he relieves in the New Mexico State game. He's throwing 93 with the cutter, getting everybody out, da 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 da. I just thought my kid had a really good arm, but basically, you can't teach 95, so you teach 95 how to throw strikes. And so his whole experience in the minor leagues was to, hey, I got to get better every day. I got to get better every day. And his minor league experience with Toronto, and he still is with friends, guys that he met. There's still a couple of the guys. Stroman was the closer, and Scott was the setup guy when they were in Double A together. Stroman's a Yankee now. But Scotty was blessed that his mom really turned him into a good person, and he gave it the best shot he got. And it was all fun because he always did a little bit better. He had a knee surgery. He stepped his stride leg, and he hit the mound, and he broke a meniscus. And that was probably his 7th year in, and that was pretty. When you get injured a couple times, he had bone chip taken out of his elbow too. That's when that dream is usually taken away from you, unless you're throwing 98 or 99. But I'm blessed to have him as a son. He is running the Garcia Parra baseball group in El Segundo, California. So that's what Scotty's doing now, and gave us 3 great grandkids.
Awesome.
So Nomar and his brother Mike run this corporation. And Mike's really involved, and Nomar has got that last name that everybody knows about. But he's having a blast working with little kids, and I appreciate you bringing him up. I really do.
That's great to hear.
That was, minor league baseball. If you hear a lot of the stories of it, and how extraordinary of a journey it is, that's one of them. And I really appreciate you telling that story. For somebody who's watched baseball his entire life, and I worked for the Isotopes, got to meet a couple of those guys, and met a player by the name of John Lindsay. I don't know if Jacob met him, but he was like the old Jacob remembers him. This is 14, 15 years ago. He was a journeyman minor league player, and he got called up that year in 2010 to play for the Dodgers in the midst of their pennant races. But I think of stories like that, and that one, and if you watch baseball now, who Marcus Stroman is, and that's I'm a Mets fan, and he took a dump on the Mets organization, but that's not here nor there. That was a really cool story. Bottom line, that was awesome.
He was pitching. He came in. It was kind of weird because he hadn't thrown very much, and this would have been Birmingham's year. So Scotty played for all day the first year, and they let Rich go, and then Birmingham came in. And Scotty in the New Mexico State game, it was a Tuesday game they play. So it was the 8th inning, and instead of coming in to get ready to hit, he turned around and he ran to the bullpen. And I looked at his mother and I said, he's going to pitch tonight. And so he came in and struck all 3 Aggies out. And from that time, I got attacked by John Skladanis, a White Sox coach that I'd known for years. And he thought I was holding out on him. I said, "What the hell, Gracie? You're not going to share that with me?" And I go, What are you talking about?" He says, "His fastball was good, but his cutter was breaking 9 inches." And I'm going, "You know more about it than I do, John." That's what I told him. It was a fun ride, and he enjoyed every minute of it. And sure, he would have he got to AAA, and uh, everything's good, man. His life's good. Appreciate it.
We might have to have him on to talk about some baseball. That would be awesome.
Oh yeah, he's got stories.
Oh,
Minor baseball stories are the best.
They absolutely people. I don't think most people know that they absolutely are. They're the best stories. Probably some of the more entertaining ones too. I've got to get us to a commercial break to honor our advertisers. Mr. Gracey, we really appreciate you joining us. This was a much better conversation than I thought. And I'll probably get in trouble for this, but between the abortion comment and then your son, everything else, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, you can't make that up. You can't.
No, you cannot make that up. That's I don't want to say it's like a correct, I'm trying to be PC here, but I give it up there for creativity and better than just screaming "you suck." I will give I will give it that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we really appreciate your time. We're going to have you on again. I don't know, maybe if you watch basketball during the season or any way we can get you on to talk a little bit about officiating. We're getting into that lull of summer and trying to find things about talk about. And this was a great way to kick it off. His name's Bill Gracey. He's a former official. He's a state championship coach. And he's a member of the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame. Bill, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you guys. Eddie, I'm glad we ran into each other the other night. I think we brought each other good luck, buddy.
Hey, Coach, I always appreciate, man. A lot, much respect to you always, and congratulations again to La Cueva on that state championship. It was a lot of drama with those last pitches, man. Everybody in the booth was holding their breath, man, on every pitch. You know, so congratulations to you and Coach Pineda.
It was an amazing game for sure. I've never been in one like that, but appreciate all you guys. And anytime that I can come on, you let me know. I certainly would do it.
No, we'll definitely have you on again. All right, we're gonna take a quick commercial break and then we'll be back. I don't know if have that good of a conversation, that good of a conversation, or have that good of stories. Again, this is Pit Press Live. My name's Ryan Tamori. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
All right, welcome back. Well, let me get us back to where we were. And Ed's still out. I'm sorry, I brought us back. My name is Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. Hopefully Ed will be back because he knows Bill Gracey. I thought that was a fantastic conversation. That's not what I expected at all. And I was expecting to have him on for like 30 minutes and he talked to us for an hour, but he had good stories and it was great. I kind of want your guys' thoughts on that, Rick and Jacob, and then when Ed gets back. Um, but Rick, I don't know. I thought that was a great conversation, and we're, as I mentioned, it's not like we're not at a loss for content, but during the summer, it's a little bit hard with what we do to find actual um content. Sorry, sorry, Ed. We came back from the break.
Well, that's all right.
But Rick, I just thought I wanted your thoughts because I thought that the trash talking was awesome. The trash talking story was great.
Yeah, Coach Gracey, Ref Gracey, definitely a great guy. Really a wide depth of knowledge and experiences across sports. Really run into some great athletes across his time reffing college basketball. There's so many different things we could just have one show with them about, it seems. But just being able for him to ref guys like Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony, Darvin Ham, I could hear experiences like that all day. But if you just look at his overall accomplishments, you could read off, since the 70s, he's just been winning in awards. And now even the most valuable player award at Cibola High School, I believe it said, is named after him. So that's pretty cool. I always joke with my parents about my high school building statues of me and stuff like that. But this is the guy that's actually having it done. So great guest. Hope we can have him on again.
I'm on mute. No, that was it was really, I thought it was awesome. And for some, I love a lot of history of sports. I love the history of sports in this country. And when he mentioned Rick Majerus and those running Rebel teams under Tark the Shark and Don Haskins, I love that. And he was my kind of guy because he said shit and then he apologized for it. And I was like, no, you're good, you're good. Jacob, your thoughts, because I know we criticize refs, but it's that was a great conversation and it gives you insight. And I appreciated your question from the inconsistency to the consistency in the second half.
Yeah, no, I think it was, it's interesting to hear all the different scenarios, all the different things that he's ran into over the years. Um, I don't know. I thought that it was a great conversation. His insight was awesome. All the games he did, all the great players he got to see, it gives you an inside look as to how much more in depth the refereeing goes into than just showing up and reffing a game for the night. It's more about doing your research on the players, the type of teams that you're going to be reffing against, the type of offenses they run, just all that kind of stuff. And it just, it really makes sense when you sit there and listen to somebody like that, right? The talking about the grading of officials, it's interesting to hear that kind of stuff. The only thing that we didn't get to hear from him is how many times is bad too much, or how many times is great lead to raises or better games or promotions, stuff like that. That would have been something I would have loved to ask him, but it was just really good content, and we talked about it, like you said, a lot during the season, so it's nice to have an inside perspective from somebody that's actually done it over his entire life. So great guest, and it was a great conversation, a lot of interesting knowledge. I felt like I was being quiet, but it was cool just to listen to the stories and all about that stuff.
Ed, you know him very well, Mr. Bill Gracey. Since we've started doing this since January of 2023, you have been significant in several gets that we've had. I know people that know people, so it makes it easier. But you know a lot of people, and I always joke that I think Daniel Ferret, like I always use the Jim Rome analogy, how Jim Rome's favorite interview is Bill Romanowski the week of the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl on Radio Row, and Romanowski comes on and says batshit crazy stuff. And Rome will ask him like, "Hey, did you do leg day today?" That's my Daniel Ferris is that guy because I've mentioned it all the time on here how Daniel Ferris tells the crazy Steve Alford stories and how he ripped him. And then we've talked to Dontrell Moore. That's the first time I've met Bill Gracey, and I apologize that we couldn't get him on camera, but it was still totally worth it. That was one of the, since we've been doing this in a year and a half, and again, I worked for the paper, I did journalism for 4 or 5 years. As far as stories go and somebody excited to talk to us, I thank you for that gig because I thought that was one of the better interviews we've had on this show.
I got to tell you one thing about Coach Gracey. We just hit it off. When I met him, we just hit it off. And somebody I was, I saw him a couple years ago when he's, I had a little Cueva baseball game 2 years ago. Went in the dugout and we talked, and that he was going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. I was the MC, so him and I, talked because he had some certain things he wanted me to say when I introduced him. So, and then the other thing I want to tell you guys, my son, he's a play-by-play broadcaster for ProView Networks. He had one of his first baseball games was with La Cueva. And if you're sitting up there in the press box at La Cueva, it can be intimidating, man. It can be, because parents are up there and, it's kind of intimidating. And, I talked to Bill and I said, hey, would you mind saying hi to my son? He said hi to my son, and so did Gerard Pineda. And both, I appreciated that because it made my son, made Nick, relax a little bit because he hadn't done a baseball game, and as much as I talked to him about it, he had to figure it out himself. He did a phenomenal job. I was really proud of him. But that's the kind of person that Bill is. I saw him down in the dugout on Saturday when I was doing PA, and we had a little talk. But I got to say this. Now, he mentioned calling plays, being a good play caller. Now, people may disagree. I think, there's a talent to calling plays, man. There's a talent to being an official. There absolutely is. It's just not, I always said that the best referees, and believe me when I tell you this, that when I played, I was one of the worst there was on officials. I got kicked out of intramural games. I got kicked out of city games, out of county games. And when I became an official, some of my friends were like, hey, you were the worst, man. I can't believe you're a ref now. And it just changed my whole perspective. Now, it kind of made me laugh about Mackenzie Bishop, and nothing against Mackenzie. He's a Great young guy. I love Mackenzie, okay? But when he's saying that he's telling the official, like, hey, you missed that. Believe me when I tell you, he didn't have a clue. If I put a whistle in anybody's hand, there's nothing against Mackenzie. I like him, okay? So I want you to know that I like him. But if I put a whistle in front of anybody that's never been out there and I've got to make a call with 18,000 fans yelling at me, it sounds easy. When I'm watching from the first row, yeah, you missed that. Let you put the whistle in your mouth and let's see what you do. Because let me tell you something. It takes talent. It does. It takes all the things you mentioned, Jacob, watching film, watching the offenses and defenses, getting better. Our former commissioner that passed away, Kip Luna, he would always say, watch yourself on film. The film doesn't lie. He would always say that. And he's right. He was right about that. So there's, I'm just so you guys know, I love all you guys, man. You guys are good dudes. So I'm not saying that I never mess. And I said that to Coach Ron Geyer at Los Lunas. Coach Geyer's one of the best coaches in the state. Coached at Alamogordo, coached at Los Lunas, coached at St. Mike's. One of the best you ever seen. I told him one time, Coach, I missed that. And I remember when I told him that, he said, hey, you know what? No one ever says that. And I said, I did. I missed it. And I think after that, me and him just hit it off. That doesn't mean he didn't get on my case. He did. He did. I missed calls. Yes, I was human. I never hosed anybody intentionally, ever. Never, ever. Just like anyone else, I'm human. But it's not an easy job. So that's all I'm saying. So, I think, Jacob, your question about inconsistency was a darn good one. People, you want to be consistent, right? I used to hear that. Ed, Brian O'Neill, Ryan, the late Brian O'Neill, Joe's brother. I love Brian, rest in peace. He passed away from throat cancer a couple years ago. He'd say, Ed, I don't mind if you call that on RT Gwynn down here, as long as you make the same call down there. Okay, Coach. Okay. So consistency is one of the things that, Jacob, you're always talking about that. But all I'm saying is when you're at the pit, you're in a big venue, man, those block charge calls, boom, they got to be made right there. So I thought Coach Gracey, was gracious enough to come on with us, think about the resume he has and the games that he's called, 14. And he came on here without arrogance. He wanted to share with us. That's a really good human being. So I'm glad he came on, and I can't say enough good things about him, because every time I see him, he's always very respectful. How are you? Wants to know how I'm doing. He just asked me last week, how's your son doing? So he's just a good guy, and I'm glad he was able to share his officiating experiences with us.
No, he was calm, cool, and collected, and he had great stories, and he was the stories were told well, and he seemed like he had a sense of humor, which resonates with me. I probably don't take anything seriously at all, so it resonated really, really well with me. The comments were flowing in, and I did not want to ruin Bill Gracey's mojo, but it seems like people really enjoyed it. I do. Z Mountain Shadow, thank you for keeping me updated on the Celtics game. Thank you very much. I got to go to my buddy Mike here though, because this cracked me up. I had to text him during it. Dave Hall is absolutely the worst referee in college basketball history. Dave Hall sucks. That is all. Ha ha ha. Thought that was funny. Yeah, and then again the Celtics update. A lot about AI. It could be Skynet and they take over the world. That's on you guys. Some of the comments here, we did get thank you, Eric Markham. Appreciate you watching from Tampa. Mountain Shadow. Thanks, Gracey. And again, thanks for updating me on the Celtics game. And I want to get to this comment. I'm kind of switching gears here, and we want to talk to UNM about UNM specifically because this is what our main primary coverage is. Z Mountain Shadow, can you get some player interviews? Watch DNVR Rams show. Some great interviews with Joe Palmer, great kid. Couldn't help rooting for the guy. Interviewed, showed me why. We had players on. We had Mustafa Amzil on last summer. We had Quentin Webb on. We had Danny Gonzalez on about 7 weeks out of the year. We've had
Mushila.
Yeah, we had Isaac. What did I say something wrong? Yeah, we had Isaac Mushila on. We had Patino on at the basketball media days in October at Resorts World in Vegas. We had Mike Bradbury on, and that was the only time we talked about women's basketball. I know JJ Buck pretty well. He's a voice of them. Need to get him on. JJ's the man. He's great. I have to say this while I keep that comment up. We are press credentialed with UNM. However, getting interviews seems to be rather difficult. I will say that. I don't know why. I think we are just as big as other outlets in this city. I'm just going to leave it at this. I'm very frustrated with it. We have had players on. We've also had other coaches on from around the conference. We will try to continue to bring that to you. What we're doing right now, Tuesdays and Thursday nights, is kind of just our opinion, fact-based, kind of, lighthearted, easy going. With that said, I am a journalist talking to people. I need a voice in a story. Bill Gracey was a perfect example of that, but trust me, I hear you when you say that. So appreciate you asking that, but it's not for lack. I know the media contacts over at UNM, and I wish they were a little bit more helpful when it comes to that, instead of TV news and the Journal in this town. Speaking of going to UNM, though, the big thing right now, I would say, is golf and baseball. Baseball is playing the Mountain West Conference tournament for the first time since 2017. They haven't made the NCAA tournament in 2016. They rallied down 6-0 on Sunday and fend off San Jose State to get the second seed, finish second in the conference behind Fresno State. They will take on San Jose State. Air Force won the conference. That's right. Fresno State's fourth. The Lobos will play San Jose State 3:30 Mountain Time on Thursday for that game, and it's a round robin. So I think you have to be, I don't know if it's necessarily a round robin or double elimination, but you have to be eliminated twice. I think it would be very cool if they could figure out how to win. I've always talked about the Ray Birmingham teams that have been that were pretty darn good, and they made the tournament 3 years in a row in 2011, 2012, and 2013, or 2010, 2011, 2012. Those are some really good baseball teams. So I wish them the best of luck. Hopefully we can do something with that going further on. And they do play at Tony Gwynn Stadium in San Diego, California, on SDSU's campus. Tony Gwynn is if not my favorite player of all time. Do any of you guys have any comments on baseball? I know their batting average was high. Jacob, you're probably the biggest baseball fan on here. I know you see a little bit of it. I know you were on vacation last week, but any thoughts going forward with that?
No, just that, like you said, it would be awesome to see a team make the NCAA tournament again. I'm a big baseball fan. I know Ray Birmingham was the main years that we had here, but it would just be nice to see them, propel and have a good team. I'd assume that baseball is very much like the basketball and football area with getting people in and transferring and all that kind of stuff. And so hopefully this will put them back on the map and get us some teams, that we could get behind. But it's just nice to see a sports team here at UNM besides, UNM basketball making some headlines. And I would love to see them make the tournament. And I'll definitely be interested over this next couple of weeks to see, if they get in through the Mountain West tournament, what regional they go to, and, pay attention to that. So awesome to hear, and congratulations to them.
Golf, quickly here, because it's all the a lot of the Olympic sports here. And I lost it, I guess. I know that the track and field team is representing at the outdoor track and field championship first round. Joe Franklin here for years was a phenomenal. Again, I'm going back to my Daily Lobo games. A lot of good Olympic sports, a lot of good smaller sports. Everything was good but football, and one Mike Loxley, Hurricane Loxley, who came in and just destroyed everything. They won national championships and were really good. They are, where is it? Dozen athletes, 6 men and women, will represent New Mexico track and field at NCAA regional preliminaries this week in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is the home of the University of Arkansas, the Woo Pig Suey. The 22nd through the 25th. Tomorrow's the 22nd. Looking to punch their tickets to the NCAA Outdoor Championships in Eugene, Oregon. They always have the outdoor championships on Oregon's beautiful campus there. After concluding the outdoor season with marks that rank among top 48 declared athletes in their respective events. Participants, if you don't know anything about it, I don't remember any of this from 15 years ago, but participants for the 2024 NCAA Division I men's and women's outdoor track and field championship first rounds are determined by the NCAA Division I men's and women's track and field and cross country committee. There's a committee for everything in the NCAA. For each event contested at both the NCAA regional preliminary round sites, the top 48 declared student athletes and top 24 relay squads in their respective regions are accepted into the competition, with the top 12 in each prelim advancing to the NCAA Outdoor NCAA Championships at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. That's June 5th through the 8th. A lot of the indoor championships are here because of the altitude. They're always at the convention center. So that's pretty cool. I wanted to get into this, and then we'll talk about a little bit more NIL stuff, something else closer to home, and I didn't create a banner for it. Sean Ryder of the Journal wrote a story about Diego Pavia. He says he's transferring from New Mexico State to Vanderbilt. Jerry Kill, with his abrupt resigning from New Mexico State, I think due to health issues, took a what's the word I'm looking for? Like not a coaching job, but like an
Advisor.
Advisor. Yeah. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word advisor.
Analyst.
Wow. Or something. Analyst. Yeah. For Vanderbilt. He had his youth tournament at Volcano Vista. Again, he went to St. Pius and transferred to Volcano Vista. He did it with a linebacker, Tyler Martinez. There were 11 kids in the photo. I'm not here to knock, Diego Pavia. I will say this though. He always posts about thanking his Lord and Savior, and I'm not knocking anybody on their religion. I just think it's funny that he always posts that stuff, and then he was caught urinating on a field. So I always say WWJD in that situation. I guess, Jacob, I'll start with you. And I've said this with New Mexico State, man. They won me a boatload of money because I rode them spread last year, and they were good. Vanderbilt's not a very good football program in the SEC, but it's still the SEC. I don't know if he's going to start there, but he's going to be there, and he's proven, and he's the defending offensive Conference USA Offensive Player of the Year. They got to the Conference USA Championship. They lost to Liberty, and Liberty got to a New Year's Six game. I mean, what do you see for him there?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have an opportunity. Obviously, he'll be surrounded. Even, it's crazy to say this because you look at Vanderbilt, they don't win very often, but there's definitely probably more talent over there in that area than New Mexico State. But we also have to remember that Diego Pavia beat Auburn last year with the New Mexico State team, right? So I think he'll be given a shot. I think that the only reason he would have left with Kill is if Kill had, a little bit of input, or at least gave him a chance to go there. Or he would have probably taken a lesser route and went to a smaller school. That would be my opinion on Diego Pavia's transfer. But I think he'll have an opportunity there. When you think of Vanderbilt, you don't really think of anything flashy, obviously, on the football side. It's going to be a total rebuild there. All I know is that they're definitely enhancing that stadium. It was like under construction the entire season last year. Their scoreboard was hanging by like 2 cranes last year because they were in the middle of rebuilding that stadium. So they're definitely trying to reamp that program and get it, SEC worthy. But I think it would be a good thing if Diego could start there. It puts New Mexico's name on the map, so as everything that he's done to UNM, including, his actions in the practice facility and all that kind of stuff, the best of luck to him. Hopefully he goes out there and is able to prove himself. And like I said, maybe put, New Mexico's name on the map.
Ed, I'm not here to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you a question. And I'm not trying to stir up shit. Given what had happened, with the, I guess, P-Gate, and it was a while ago, the Journal posted a photo of him and only 11 kids. And we had heard that there weren't that many kids there at all. You're Lobo. And again, I'm asking you this question because I think that photo represents maybe him being from the Albuquerque area. Do you think that and Eric kind of mentioned it in text, who couldn't join us tonight again, newborn baby. Do you still think it probably doesn't sit well with a lot of fans here in Albuquerque? And again, there's a lot of NMSU alumni in this area, northern New Mexico, central New Mexico. Do you feel that he still may have rubbed people the wrong way and, again, used his finger, pointed a gun at a Lobo and they beat them. But he won. I've always said that, winning cures all. I'm asking you this, being the Lobo fan since 1970, do you think that has still not sat well, with Lobo fan? And now he's gone though.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. It didn't sit well with me. I'm a Lobo. I'm not an Aggie fan. I dislike the Aggies quite a bit. But and then it was funny because they asked Coach Kill about it, and he said, "Oh, I had him cleaning the toilets with a toothbrush." And that he didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. And what he probably said is, the hell with them. I'm glad you did that or whatever, because they won. He doesn't care about what he did as far as peeing on the field. He could have cared less as long as they're winning. He had that swag about him. He came over here and he rushed for 50 some yards, a big key third down conversion that the Lobos didn't stop. So no, it didn't sit well with me. He never apologized for it. So hey, Jacob, you make a good point. I think it also depends on what kind of, hey, Coach Kill and Diego Pavia, they changed the culture there at New Mexico State. That had been a terrible program. They had 2 winning seasons, and as much as I hate the Aggies, and I shouldn't say I hate them, but I'm not a fan, never have been. They had 2 winning seasons that beat New Mexico twice. You already pointed to that game with Bronco Mendenhall, Ryan, that that's a game that he must win. You're already circling that one, and it's like I remember driving back from Western, listening to the Lobos lose, and I was like, man, I was so mad about it. I hate when they lose to New Mexico State. But give Pavia and Jerry Kill credit. As much as I may not have liked what Pavia did, he's a New Mexico kid. He went to St. Pius, went to Volcano Vista. Part of me is hoping he does great at Vanderbilt, and it depends. I was just going to mention that, Jacob, what kind of talent he has around him. Jerry Kill surrounded him with some good linemen, some good receivers, and Jerry Kill was a heck. You saw him grab that player during that one. I can't remember what game, who they were playing, but he was grabbing some player, Coach Kill, on the sideline. My understanding was from somebody that plays down there, he cussed everybody out. Everybody's held accountable. And so they turned it around. As much as I didn't like what Pavia did, you got to give him credit. You got to give Coach Kill credit. But, to your answer, circle back to what you said, Ryan, as far as it certainly didn't sit well with me. I'm sure it didn't sit well with a lot of people here. you have 11 people at your camp. I think that pretty much. And you know what? I would want kids to go to that because you get to, I think camp. I went to a lot of basketball camps, every darn camp I could. I'm sure you went to a lot, Rick and Jacob. You went to some too, and I'm sure you went to camps too. That Ryan, those camps are fun. I still remember the instruction I got and the coaching. So I would want kids to go there. That kids didn't show up though, kind of tells you the answer to your question. I think that did rub some people the wrong way because of the way it was handled. If he had just said afterward, "Hey, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that," but it was more like, "Yeah, I'm sorry," kind of with a grin. And Coach Kill probably said, "You know what? The hell with them, man. I'm glad you did that." So just the way it was handled, I think left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
I want to get Rick's thoughts because he was, again, as I always say, two-time offensive state lineman. But I want to let it be known that I would be just as hard personally, and I repeatedly say this, of being objective on this show. I would be just as hard as somebody from UNM. They should apologize. It looks like crap. It made the state look bad. Jerry Kill's rant was right in front of me. That's the best press conference I've ever been to because it came out of nowhere. But again, I think they handled it poorly. I don't think they care down there. I think it's a different political view. It's the haves versus have-nots where they feel that UNM has it all and New Mexico State doesn't. And to some aspect, that's true. And I'm not saying that's right. I think that the king in this state is basketball. It's a basketball state. As far as I'm concerned, over the last, I don't know how many, maybe decade, NMSU has the last laugh when it comes to things, especially beating Danny Gonzalez twice. Ed, again, I repeat that we had Danny Gonzalez on. I really enjoyed talking to Danny. Danny was super cool with us. Coach Gonzalez was super cool with us. But the double-digit wins against the Lobos the last 2 years, one in Cruces, one here, and then Teddy Allen and Chris Jans beating UConn, which is UConn's last men's basketball loss in the NCAA tournament two years ago. That's my rant. Rick, do you have any thoughts about it? You complete the fifth. It's up to you.
Well, if my daughter was of high school age, I would have had her attend and take a urination right on the middle of his camp. That's what I would have done. No, I'm just kidding. But what are the stations at this camp? You have one for learning how to curse and yell, and the other one at learning how to urinate publicly. I'm not surprised there wasn't a lot of campers. He is a great football player. I'm pumped that he's representing on a bigger stage. I think playing with the bigger talent in the SEC is a great opportunity, but I'm not surprised at the amount of campers. And like myself, I don't think many parents are pumped about sending their kid to go spend a day with that gentleman. So those are just my thoughts.
No, I think that's kind of the consensus. Just how it happened, and then he had an interview with Rachel Phillips, who we had on the show. She was at KVIA station down there in Cruces, and I don't know, he just came across like, yeah, I did it, and I did a damn good job peeing on that field. UNM football transfers: Cater Diop, 6 foot, 185 pounds, from San Diego Mesa, Southwestern College wide receiver, 38 receptions for 604 yards and 7 TDs last year. Sorry, changing the topic to UNM. And then Andrew Speech, 6'3", defensive back, 182 pounds, Monterey Peninsula College. Victor, holy moly, here we go. Victor Villafuerte, 6'3", 180 pounds, DB, Monterey Peninsula College. So Bronco Mendenhall, thanks, Ricky, for putting that together. Bronco.
Little known fact, Monterey Peninsula College, just south of me, their mascot is also the Lobos.
Lobos for life.
They have experience.
Literally Lobos for life. Very cool. Good to know. Looks like he's Broncos beefing up the secondary there. We'll see how these guys do. Texas State and who was it? Jacob last year, and I can't think of that coach's name. Bill and Dion, even though Dion, that kind of fell. The wheels fell off after I think during the Colorado State game, even though they won. Texas State, he had that. I forgot the coach's name, but he had them rolling. So first 3 weeks of the year, it was all about hitting the transfer portal and didn't matter where they came from. Well, I guess in Colorado it did. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, new day and age, and we'll get to that NIL. Wanted to hit really quickly on the PGA Championship, and I don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name, and I've seen it all the time. So Jacob, you have to tell me. Xander
Schauffele.
SDSU graduate, and he's the first joins Gene Littler as the only SDSU Aztec to win a PGA Major Championship, 1961 U.S. Open. So they both win a PGA Championship, then a U.S. Open. The 30-year-old from San Diego captured his first victory Sunday by outlasting Live Golf League captain Bryson DeChambeau. We know the Rick, pardon my take, guys, don't have beef with DeChambeau. I don't know if you saw it. He threw a golf ball to a kid and an adult stole it, and he kind of had words with him. I respect him for that. That was all Valhalla Golf Club outside Louisville. Obviously, I think probably the story of the weekend was Scotty Scheffler getting arrested after starting the day tied for the lead with two-time major winner Colin Morikawa. Scheffler silenced his critics who claimed that he couldn't close out a big one by posting a 6 under 65 in the final round. And I think he was shot a 31 on the front nine. I got that update. It was pretty impressive to finish a 72-hole total of 21 under. And he beat DeChambeau by one shot. Recorded the lowest 72-hole score to par and the lowest 72-hole scoring, total 263 in a major championship. It was the 9th straight PGA Championship won by American. I'm happy to hear that. Rick, I'll start with you on this. I know I watch some golf. I don't watch a whole heck of a lot. I did watch the Masters this year. I watched the final couple of holes. Just your thoughts on that. And it seemed like an interesting weekend in Louisville.
Yeah, pretty cool that we got a Mountain West guy, Xander, winning it. He's always been known the past maybe 5 years as the guy that couldn't get over the hump. He's always been there on a Sunday, but not able to make that final stretch. The guy has been in the top 20 in 9 straight majors. That just shows you how close he's been. And he had to fight off someone fighting a felony charge. He also had to fight off Meathead and Bryson DeChambeau and Victor Hovland, who was coming up on the back nine there. And he kept his composure, and it came down to the last hole, a long par 5. He was kind of had his feet at an awkward position on his second shot, and he hit a magical shot up there and made a birdie. He banged it home, and I tell you, if he would have missed that putt, it might still be rolling right now. So good for him. He earned it. He won't be known as the guy that couldn't get the monkey off his back. Now that can be passed to others such as Ricky Fowler and other golfers that are still trying to get this first one. And just seeing the scores that low, it was exciting to see these great guys play out there, and just seeing some live guys come up the leaderboard makes it even more exciting. So definitely a great weekend to golf, and great for Xander representing the Mountain West.
Jacob, your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously, I love my golf and I love to watch. So, Schauffele, like Rick said, was somebody that always was, never able to get it done. And I was on a plane on the way home watching it on the Southwest free Wi-Fi. And when he hit that putt, it did a little circle there. And I was like, oh my God, if this spins out, he's, just knowing his luck, he would have tied, went to a playoff, and he would have been going up against one of the longest hitters in the world on a par 5, because that would have been the playoff hole, and that would have probably not been very favorable for him. So good for him for getting it done. He's always been a good guy. When the Live Golf was introduced in PGA, he stuck with the PGA and said that it wasn't about the money, it was about the legacy. So I'm glad he was able to finally get one in. And then, the funny thing that I saw this weekend that I thought was just absolutely hilarious is John Daly obviously gets to play at every major that he wants. He's the only exempt golfer that is able to drive a cart during the round because of his weight and his age and everything that's going on. But I don't know if everybody saw his checklist that he knocked down on the first day. He went through 2 packs of Marlboro cigarettes, they said, a 6-pack of Diet Cokes, 4 Snickers, and 2 bags of M&Ms all in one round. So talk about an American legend right there. Goes out, shoots an 11 over par in the first round. And then the speculation and some of the great things that I saw on the second round is, do we think that John Daly withdrew from the tournament because he saw all those cops and he was all sauced up at 6 a.m. and said, screw it, I'm withdrawing. So probably one of the funniest storylines across the board there, but it's always great to see that dude ripping darts on the golf course and just living it out, and probably going to Hooters after the round. But awesome for Xander.
I only can pray that he went to Hooters afterwards. Sticking with golf, Lobos advance. The men's golf team advanced to the NCAA Regional Championship with a 5th place finish. We mentioned that last week. They will be at the NCAA Championship starting May 24th through the 29th at Omni La Costa Resort and Spa in Carlsbad, California. Features 30 teams. I believe the head coach, Jake Harrington, was Mountain West Conference Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I think yeah.
He was. Say that again.
Yes, he
Yes.
was.
Was
Yes.
perfect. All right, maybe we can hunt him down next week and have him on, talk some golf. But congratulations to the golf team. Good luck to them. Again, we'll keep you posted on that. I think we'll wrap it up with some NIL, but I've got to get to some comments because without the listeners, there's nothing there. Got a lot of good comments from the usual suspects, so we appreciate that. All right, not reading that one online. Going to that. I'm going to go to this one. This is Z Mountain Shadow, and he's asked a couple of times if UNM men's basketball practice is open. I believe that's a hard no. Good luck going to a football practice. You can't
The only way I'm aware of is if you join 505 Sports Ventures and become a member at a donation level that allows you to come to a handful of events throughout the year, and I believe you can watch those practices.
Yeah, at a certain level, I think you can go. And I know that we've had some practices open to the media. Again, we were able to go, credentialed with UNM. But I believe that, maybe Lobo Club, probably 505 Sports Venture. Here it is. Hey guys, do you know if men's basketball practices are open? I'd like to attend and learn more about what they're trying to accomplish and how a successful team is implementing practice priorities in games.
Sounds like he might be a scout, like that guy from Michigan, Connor Stallions, for Coach Harbaugh. I think this guy might be a New Mexico State scout.
Yeah, Z Mountain Shadow, we love you watching the show. And I mean this with all respect. I think that's going to be a hard no. And again, like I said, football it's like it's like the Department of Defense. No, I know they have close practices. Football has close practices. And I don't know if it's true or not. Richard Pitino told me that he schedules his practices around New York Football Giants games, which I think is fantastic. Being a New York Football Giants fan, I don't know if I should have said that, but I thought it was funny that he told me that. Hey, they still got the NCAA tournament, so I don't think it matters. That's a hard no on that. Here you go. Ed, NMSU and Marvin Mocha having open house in town soon. You can be my guest.
I'll pass, man. Thanks, John, but no thanks. You won't see me there.
A lot of comments on AI and referees. All right, to our final topic, NIL. As always, former Florida, say that 3 times fast. Former Florida football commit Jaden Rashada is reportedly suing head football coach at Florida, Billy Napier. Billy Napier is not having a good time there. Suing coach Billy Napier, Marcus Castro Walker, former Florida director of NIL and player engagement, and booster Hugh Hathcock. Over what a name, Hugh Hathcock, over the program's botch NIL deal to sign the Pittsburgh, California native. The suit, which was filed in a northern district of Florida, lists Napier, Castro, Walker, Hathcock, and Hathcock's company, Velocia Automotive, as defendants. The current Georgia quarterback alleges they defrauded him by backing out of a promised $13.85 million NIL deal that was used to entice him to play for the Gators. Rashada did a national letter of intent with Florida in December 2022, but ultimately backed out of it in January 2023. He signed with ASU, where his father played. Prior to his signing with the Gators, he also backed out of a vertical commitment to in-state program and rival Miami, which also reportedly offered Rashada a notable NIL package of $9.5 million. Money, ESPN reports the QB is claiming as part of damages in his suit. My heart goes out to Hathcock. That's quite the story. Again, I think kudos to the kids. It's your life. I'm totally for it. I know it's become the wild, wild west, but if let's say he got played and that's what happened and he got burned and they didn't pay him, kudos to him. Rick, I'll start with you on that one. When you hear that, what do you think?
Well, when you really read the details of what was going on and with Coach Napier and Rashada was on the signing day, Rashada was promised by Coach Napier an extra $1 million if he signed with Florida on that day, which he didn't get the money, so he didn't sign. And there's also some details about that. Some Florida NIL boosters paid off Miami $150,000 for Rashada so that he could get out of his deal there. So there's just strung with details, and it's just interesting to see or to learn how closely the coaches are actually talking to these kids about money when we think it's all the NIL collectives and other people at that level, when the coaches are really talking hard numbers about giving you $1 million. And it just shows how vulnerable these kids are if there's not contracts in place, right? And there's not the right support system around a guy like this when he's making this decision. And just the fear that these players have to live with right now, not knowing if these contracts are going to fall through or not, or if these guys are really going to stick to their word. And hopefully that's changing with more agents getting involved now and more paperwork. And as we talk to 505 Sports Ventures, Bishop McKenzie, it sounds like each Lobo player signs a 1-year contract at UNM to take part in the NIL collective there and get paid. So I don't know how it works, but maybe at that time, 2 years ago, it was probably looser. It's just crazy to see these numbers. And I agree with you. I'm all for it for the kids, but there's also a lot of dangers for them and a lot of deception with people much smarter than them and that have been playing this game a much longer time than an 18-year-old that just sees a check. So this is going to go on, and it'll be interesting to see.
You know what I'm about to say? If somebody was going to hand me $13.9 million at 18 years old, I'd be like, yeah. And you're going to give me $1 million today? Hell yeah. Jacob, I mean, we're big college fans when you hear that. And I'm now, not only am I now counting down the days, we're 100 days away from college football. We're less than 2 months away from NCAA football 25, which we've got some ideas for that. But given my track record with that game and the UNM football program, Jacob, your thoughts on that when you hear it?
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to show, and we talked about this, like we said, the agents, this is why they're becoming interested in the college game. There's so much into these contract details and so much in it for them. I mean, we talk a lot about basketball. Just imagine the $13.8 million that agents can be making off of these football players, in these big schools. And that's going to become predominant. You're going to see a lot of college agents and a lot of NFL agents swooping down into that college level and bringing them through to make sure that these deals go through. And you can't, back out on this $13.8 million offers or whatever the case is. But it just goes to also show you a lot of the shenanigans that's going on behind the scenes with people being bought out from wanting to go to, somebody paying somebody off to, keep the player away from another school. It really is that dog eat dog world out there in the NIL, and there's no rules, and it's the Wild West. Like you said, it kind of reminds me of I can't remember the movie when he says, I think it's Rat Race, when he says there's only one rule, and then he's like there are no rules. And that's kind of where it comes down to. Is it's crazy right now until there is something officially signed, and I'm sure these kids are getting the check. It's like you could change your mind from one day to the next. So it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep going on. And this is going to turn into, a real complex thing that a lot of outsiders and a lot of casual fans aren't going to understand. And you really have to dig deep into seeing, what the value is for the kids, but also what's going on in the back. So, yeah, I mean, nothing really surprises me anymore. I guess let's put that out there. When we hear these stories, it just kind of checks off another box, like there's another one. So interesting to see that happen, but I'm sure it won't be the last one we talk about here. They'll probably have another one pop up in a week or two.
If you've ever seen Rat Race, then check out It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It's a remake of that, or kind of. Ed, I'll get your final thoughts on that when you hear that kind of money. I mean,
I think we all raised our eyebrows a couple weeks ago when we heard Great Osabar might get $2 million to go to Washington,
and he
now
did.
we're hearing this. Then we're hearing that Texas has offered JT Toppin allegedly $1 million or $1.5 million, and we talked about that. If you're JT Toppin or any of those kids, you're not going to turn that kind of money down. But I think Jacob's exactly right. Where does it end? Where does it stop? Who stops it? The NCAA has been muted. They made trillions of dollars off of athletes' images and likeness. Who are they to say anything? So $9 million, and then you're going to start hearing people say, "Well, so and so got $5 million here. I want $2 million. I want $3 million." Where does it end? Where does it stop? No one is saying that athletes shouldn't be compensated. No one's saying that at all. But right now, and Eric, Jacob, you're right. It's the wild, wild west, man. What deals are out there. Follow the money, they always say, right? Follow the money. And there's going to be more. Jacob, you hit the nail on the head. This is only the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be hearing more. If you're hearing this now, this is, I can't wait to hear what else we're going to hear. And, it's kind of exciting as a Lobo fan, too, to say, hey, who are they going to get? But then on the other end, who are they losing? So I look at it as even at Western New Mexico, they're in the Lone Star Conference. Does Western New Mexico have the money that Texas A&M Kingsville does? UT Permian, West Texas A&M? They don't. They do not have that kind of money. So they put more chips on the table against Western as far as I'm concerned. It's hard to win there. But, yeah, I think Jacob's absolutely right. This is only the beginning. Only the beginning.
I think that's a fascinating story. And then what Eric sent us today, I think the house, I need to read that. It was for Fun Office Sports, I think. By the end of this week, Power Conference schools may officially agree to historic settlement in the House v. NCAA case. I'm not familiar with it. Non-power conferences will contribute to damage payments, but they don't have a say in the agreement. A source confirmed to FOS essentially they'd have to back pay for everything that's been made over like the last 6 or 7 years or something like that. It's astronomical. I want to thank Bill Gracey. I thought he was awesome. I really enjoyed that conversation with him. Thank you for that, Ed.
Yeah, sure.
We'll try to think of, I think Thursday night, if Jacob can join us. We tried to do it last week. Then I was like, oh, snap. He's out of town. We'll break down, give us something to talk about on Thursday, which would be breaking down transfers in basketball. And then we're probably going to pivot to football within the next 2 weeks. I did it last year. We talked kind of preview, recap spring games, even though, it's been like a month or 2 months ago. And then gearing ahead, moving forward to July, Mountain West Conference Football Media Days and fall camp. So it's kind of crazy that that's already around the corner. Hey, we thank everybody for listening. We really appreciate it, especially all the comments. We know it's kind of the lull, getting into that lull of summer. But we still appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll come to you live Thursday night. Again, 8 round. I saw a comment earlier. So is this going to start show at 8:15? We try to get together. I will say we start at 8-ish. So 8-ish every Tuesday and Thursday night Mountain Time. Visit us on Twitter or X, Pit Press NM. You can find us on Instagram, the Pit Press NM. We're on Facebook. Follow us. You can check out our website. I got one more comment. Appreciate this again. Thank you, Pit Press. Great show tonight, gentlemen. Good night from Florida. I did see you, my man, and I didn't do it.
Say hello to Miguel
Appreciate you watching. I know you had a comment. I didn't get to read it, but appreciate Miguel Sanchez. Appreciate everybody watching. On behalf of Jacob Neff, Ed Nunez, Rick Thompson, my name is Ryan Tamori. We appreciate you watching Pit Press Live, and again, we'll talk to you on Thursday.